So oftentimes in your application, you're going to want to show a progress indicator to your user as you're doing some type of operation. Well, there's a great class called the Progress Dialog class, which allows you to do that. And we'll look at how that works right now. So I've actually created a new application called Progress. And in the main XML file, I've just replaced the text view with a button. So when we click this button, it's actually going to spawn a progress dialog. Let's go over to our Java code. And first, let's get a reference to that button. I'm going to call it B. Find view by ID. We'll add that cast, and then we'll set up the on-click listener. Make sure we get that class imported. Okay, so I'm going to set up my progress dialog outside of this event handler because assuming we may want to reuse this for other areas in this activity. So I'm going to create a new instance of the progress dialog class. I'm going to call it PD is equal to new progress dialog. For the context here, since we're not in this inner event handler, I could just pass in this, which is going to reference our main activity class here. So now I want to set up some properties on this. So I'm going to say PD, and the first thing I want to do is to set the progress style. So we're going to call the set progress style method, and to this we're going to pass in a constant from the progress dialog class. So we have two types that we can choose, style horizontal and style spinner. So let's look at the spinner one first. And the next thing I need to do is to provide a message. So what do we want it to say while this is happening? So I can do pd.setMessage and then just pass in a string. So I'm just going to say, just wait. Okay, so now I need to say whether this is an indeterminate progress indicator, meaning it's not moving along at a certain percentage. I just want it to do this ongoing progress thing until it's done. We're not actually showing detailed feedback. So to do that, we're going to say set indeterminate, and we're going to set it to true. And lastly, we can set it to be cancelable or not when the user hits the back key. And I'm going to set that to true here. So now we've set up our progress dialog. Now it's very easy to show it. All we have to do is to call the show method. So I'm going to say pd.show. And we're going to have to do the quick fix, which changes the modifier to final up here, because we're in this inner event handler. So let's launch this up. And let's go over to the emulator. There it goes. There's our button. So when I click on it, now you can see we have that progress indicator that you're used to seeing if you've used an Android device before. So we have this looping animation letting people know that something is happening with our message displayed. So that's the spinner style. The next is if we want to use the style underscore horizontal. And what this is going to allow us to do is to provide actual progress of how far along we are in a certain operation. So for this, I want to set indeterminate to false because we actually want to update the value of this. So now it's important if we're doing this, if we want to set an initial value, we need to wait until this is actually shown to the user and then update it. So I'm going to come under here. Now, if I want to update the value of that progress bar, I just say set progress, and then we pass in an integer from 0 to 100. So let's say we want to make it 50% done. We pass in 50 there. And now let's go check it out on the emulator. In the real world scenario, as you're doing an operation, you're going to be consistently updating that progress bar based on whatever data is happening or whatever operation you're doing. But if I launch this now, we can see that we still have that same message, but we have the horizontal progress bar, and we have a readout here telling us, okay, it's 50% done. But again, in the real world, as your operation is happening, you're going to be giving feedback to the user by constantly updating this percentage. But to do it is very simple. You just call this set progress method and pass in an integer between 0 and 100. So that's the basics of using two different deviations of the progress dialog.